Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all on the post-lunch session on production of the 17th International Conference on Apparel and Home Textiles. In continuation of our theme for today, Path to $50 billion US dollars garment exports, with a special focus on sustainability and manufacturing excellence, I hereby extend a warm welcome to all our distinguished speakers, session chairmen, and delegates. Our esteemed session chairman for today, Mr. Animesh Saxena, is the managing director of Niti Apparels LLP. Niti Apparels LLP, Gurugram, Haryana, was established in the year 1992. It is a government-recognized star export house engaged in manufacture and exports of garments leading to leading fashion stores all over the world. Mr. Saxena has done his MBA and doctorate from Banaras Hindu University, and he's also the president of Federation of Indian Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. I now invite Mr. Saxena to introduce our esteemed session speakers for the day.
Thank you, Vibha. It's a pleasure to chair this session post-lunch. And as Vibha told, this is a really power-packed presentation with 3 distinguished speakers today we have. There is a little change in the sequence of which was already announced. So we are taking up this issue of building a data-driven enterprise and opportunity to advance with the digitization, which was the second presentation. Basically, now we are advancing it. And I have with me Mr. Anuj. He's head of the business, Zilingo factory. Let me briefly tell you about Anuj. Anuj is the head of this, as I mentioned, the Zilingo factory, a B2B technology company that empowers the global apparel supply chain with innovative solutions. This was founded in 2016, and Anuj has been the driving force behind evolving this company into a SaaS-focused company. He is leading the team at Zilingo factory with a degree in apparel production, and now advocating the industry 4.0 evolution in the apparel supply chain sector. So I'm sure you all will enjoy his presentation and how the technology is helping the business in the coming time with this industry if we are really heading towards 4.0 development. So I welcome Anuj once again to you and hand over to you with your presentation. It will be a delight to hear you.
Thank you, Animesh, for the warm introduction, and a pleasure to be speaking at OGTC once again. Last year, unfortunately, as well, we were doing it online. This year as well, I'm hoping to meet everyone soon in person whenever the opportunity gives us a chance. But definitely a pleasure to be here again. So today, as we are a little early into the session, we are going to focus on, as Animesh introduced, on how to build a data-driven enterprise and through that achieve manufacturing excellence. So I'll be sharing my screen. Once it is visible, do let me know so that I can start with the presentation.
Yes, we can see it. Yeah, it's visible.
Great. So as I have changed the topic slightly, I've basically moved it to fast track to manufacturing excellence journey with analytics, building a data-driven enterprise. And as we have been hearing since today, the entire day, starting from Tony G's introduction of how do we achieve Mr. Colonel Kapoor's insight into how OGTC is prepping for it, and Prashant's insights also into how manufacturing excellence can help getting to a $50 billion worth of market share for Indian apparel sector. That's where I want to focus. So the overall presentation will be divided into 3 phases. The first part of the presentation will be focusing on what is manufacturing excellence, what do we mean by it, how do we look at unlocking manufacturing excellence for any factory. The second bit will be introducing the big data analytics, what I like to call it now, the DNA of the company or the organization, which is digital and advanced analytics. And once we are done with that, then very slightly touching upon what we are doing at ZFactory and what is our vision in very short form. So yeah, starting with a couple of interesting definitions apart from what Prashant had earlier shared and what he meant by what we mean by manufacturing excellence. Couple of definitions that I've been able to find through multiple different white papers is it focuses majorly, manufacturing excellence focuses on sustainable and continuous improvement of an organization so that we're able to drive in competitive advantage, lower the costs, and increase the profits of different factories. It also basically means to include another parallel, which is your quality and safety also has been included very recently into that definition. But one of the very interesting definitions that I like, I'm forgetting the gentleman's name who basically quoted this, but operational excellence in an organization is when each employee can see the flow of value to the customer and fix that flow when it breaks down. So that is what we are basically aiming to do. So when you look at all of these definitions, there are multiple parts to it, which is where we want to now delve, which I want to delve into deeper now. So how do we go about achieving manufacturing excellence? The first is definitely on the leadership and the management of the organization, which plays a very crucial part. Once we have been able to define, and we'll get into the details of what leadership and management of the organization looks like and how it should be done, the second stage of that entire process comes on to the characterizing the system, the overall manufacturing of the organization system that is in place, and the performance of that particular organization. And then once we have been able to do that, then sustaining the future competitiveness of that organization by doing certain things. So now coming on to the first point, which is basically a leadership and management of the organization. When Prashant was also sharing his screen, there were multiple parts of manufacturing excellence, which include goals and objectives, customers, employees, organization systems, suppliers and vendors, and culture. So the management's task in this entire picture basically comes onto the part of aligning each and every part of these puzzle into the direction of achieving manufacturing excellence. So manufacturing excellence, if you just focus on your own environment, which is your manufacturing unit, you will not be able to achieve that. That is where the challenge lies. In addition to aligning the goals, the culture, the organization system, and the employees, you also need to align yourselves with what customers need and align also the suppliers and vendors to the manufacturing excellence piece of the overall puzzle. So that is where the first hurdle comes in terms of manufacturing excellence sorting. We try to align each of these pieces to the aim of manufacturing excellence. We basically drive in the details of what that means for that organization, what are the ways of doing it, and encompassing and putting it in a structure. Once that is done, that basically allows us to go to the next stage, which is basically defining how do we evaluate it going forward, which basically is divided into two parts. One is your metrics, and second is definitely your models. So once these goals are created or the path is defined, we need to start characterizing what is the current benchmark and how are we going to improve it. So once we have been able to define that, we divide it into two parts. One is on the metric side and second is the model side. Metrics do not mean anything else than your standard KPIs of different production units and stuff, which most of the people would be aware of. Models, on the other hand, mean how do we create, let's say, smaller units in your organization which can do evaluation of a certain strategy in a quick manner, which is where you are able to see a quick output of any strategy or any process that you have improved on, and then basically evaluate it. On this side, you have to start with first, as I said, decide these metrics and models, and then start with observe, orient, decide, and the ACT philosophy of which is already prevalent in the industry, which is observe, orient, decide, and act, which is also called as OODA principles, and continue it on a regular basis as a continuous improvement program in the organization. And once you have been able to set this up, it basically Then lies on to the management on building the second part of it, which is basically learning and experimentation, not only stopping at let's say one stage of the overall journey, but continuously evaluating what does manufacturing excellence mean for the next 5 years and the 5 years after that and the 5 years after that. So what manufacturing excellence meant, let's say 10 years back, is not relevant now. So you need to continuously learn and experiment of how do you achieve that on a day-to-day basis over here, and then ensure that you are also integrating technology, which is the right way of ensuring that you have a sustainable improvement going into the manufacturing unit. Without technology, it basically also is a little difficult to ensure that you are able to sustain the impact of the manufacturing excellence projects that you have done. And that is where it basically translates into an overall process, first to define or align all the 6 components of goals, customers, employees, organization, systems, suppliers, and culture with one task or one outlook of achieving a manufacturing excellence. Once we have been able to do that, define the benchmarks, define the future objectives, and then continuously observe, orient, decide, and act. It is not necessary that you decide a 5-year plan and implement it. You need to have short-term and long-term plans, and that's where observe, orient, decide, and act will be very helpful. And once you do this, it basically gets into the learning, experimentation, and technology piece. So this is what manufacturing excellence is, or how factories can do it at this point of time. When we move on to the other side of the story, where we are with, let's say, digital analytics or industry 4.0, it's the screen is the presentation would be able to tell you exactly that the first industrial revolution was mechanization of water power and steam power. The second was mass production or assembly line and electricity. The third one was computer and automation. The fourth one that we are currently in, and going forward, all the industrial revolutions will be much quicker than the gaps. So the gap between the first and the second was approximately 100 years. The gap between the second and the third was approximately 70 to 80 years. The gap between the third and the fourth is just 20 years. So that is where we are at this point of time, where we need to ensure, we need to realize that while we are still only implementing principles of Industry 4.0, Industry 5.0 principles have already come out, and people have started working on that, which is where we will be presented with unprecedented levels of data for our factories once we go on the journey of Industry 4.0, which will help us to take it further into a more matured, more digital organization in the future. So this is just to give to you an insight of where we are in terms of a digital enterprise. Before I delve into the side of how do we use what we learned earlier, which is basically the manufacturing excellence and the process of it, and how do we put data analytics and digital and advanced analytics into that picture, I want to just show one picture. This is a picture of 1896 Olympics. It is a 100-meter sprint. And when I saw this, it was also astonishing for me, where almost all of the competitors were not in the crouched position. Only one person was, which was Thomas Burke, where he basically was the first person who crouched, and he started that, which is a very small improvement, but he was able to win that competition at 12 seconds. But when we look at improving in our factories, it has a very good analogy to that. We always look at improving small things, but the problem with small things is that the moment you implement it, it is very easy to replicate into any other organization or any other in any competing environment as well. So that's where we need to think really small and at the time very big, which basically means is that we want to do small improvements, but they need to be done at a large scale. We don't have to, so we can't now say that, okay, fine, first I will improve my changeover time for a certain time, and then I will start concentrating on my cut to ship ratio or something like that. You need to concentrate on all the small aspects while you are basically building it. So yeah, this is Thomas Burke in 1896, who started the crouch position, which now has become the standard operating procedure for every sprint that is there on the world. So that, having said that, it basically helps me to come on to the point where we need to bring in digital analytics. How do we bring in small changes through a large variety of throughout the overall organization. And that's where your digital and advanced analytics will play. How do you use digital and advanced analytics going forward will be dependent on 4 approaches. These 4 approaches for n number of factories will be different because every other factory will be working on a different kind of a system. One factory will be working on, let's say, very high style value garments. So one approach might be important, which will be, let's say, a product driven approach where you analyze value to analytics, which is basically you analyze your styles, the value it is bringing to your organization, and based on that drive the digital and advanced analytics on that front, which is one of the approaches you can apply, which is driving it from the product side where you're focusing, if any. I know OGTC members do cater to a certain segment, but in that also there are a lot of different types of manufacturers who concentrate on different segments of the industry. That's where some approaches will be important. So product driven approach will be important for the people who are delivering on high value garments and trying to analyze the data and the digital needs from that aspect, which will give us immediate returns for that organization. The second one is manufacturing driven, which is basically someone like who has a large scale manufacturing, which basically focuses on ensuring that we are able to turn around large scale volume products in a quicker time. It would be a manufacturing driven approach, which would mean that we find the opportunity within the entire piece of manufacturing fast, ensure that we are updating the supply chain and upskilling the people at the same time. The third approach of doing a digital and advanced analytics would be journey driven, which would mean that you aim to provide and majority of the manufacturers now will fall into the journey driven aspect, where they will want to ensure that their customers are getting an end-to-end digital enablement, which is also a requirement coming in from majority of the brands at this point of time. We have been speaking to a lot of brands recently where a lot of brands have their own KPIs which come in. Adidas has a QKPI framework, Gap has something else. So everyone is evaluating vendors on their end-to-end digital enablement category, and which is where journey driven is where you will, majority of the apparel manufacturers currently in India will fall or want to take up that approach. And the last one is definitely a cost and a budget driven. Earlier, the budgets were made of let's say, okay, I want to spend so and so number on sales, or I want to spend so and so number on technology, I want to spend so and so money on this. That's how we created budgets. But going recently, there has been a concept called zero-based budgeting, which basically means that you always start at scratch. You do not compare how much did you spend last year, and you do not increase that by a certain percentage. But what you evaluate is that at the start of the year, or when you're doing the budget plan, you evaluate how much money you put into that particular endeavor and what it basically brought back as a value addition to your organization. And based on that, build a zero-based budget, which would be an interesting approach also. All of these will require an advanced analytics at the end of the day, which will have different applications. And once you have decided on the approach, it will get easier for you to basically understand how to approach it. So if it is product driven, you know that you need to start at the product side. If it is cost project driven, then you know where to start. If it is journey driven, you know where to start. So once we have decided which approach to take, or it could be a combination of 2 or more approaches in this, that's where you would start your manufacturing excellence through digital and advanced analytics. Once we get into that journey, that's where we will realize that there are 4 critical enablers of DNA transformation as well. The first one is definitely the talent that will be there in your organization, which is varied, and everyone has been speaking about it very, very well, that we need, as Mr. Rajat was also pointing out, that we need good people, good middle management on the team, on every manufacturing organization, so that they are able to do better job and basically have a good second in command. The second part is definitely that is the data piece, where that all factories, and this is an interesting point, but All factories usually have all the data that they need, but it is not in an unified or an accessible form. So that is the second critical enabler, that how do we ensure that it is in a unified or an accessible form. So that is the second one that we will be focusing on. The third one is the technology. People usually create in digital transformation, people usually, without understanding how to take it forward, fall into a pitfall that, okay, I am liking RFID technology, so I should implement it. But no, that's not how you should be approaching it. You should basically first ensure that your talent and your data streamlining is done. You understand your organization well. And once you have done that, that's only when you basically get into the part of technology and understand what technology would be useful for you. And from there, make a decision. So you might not need a certain software or a certain product. You might be going behind a certain curve which is there in the industry, but it might not be the need of your organization, and which is where you need to ensure that you complete the first and the second step of this critical enablers before you come on to the part of technology. And definitely the third one, or the fourth one, is basically your agile delivery in manufacturing units. Usually we follow a sequential method to improve any process, which would be, let's say, we'll do step 1 and then step 2 and then step 3. But when it comes to, let's say, digital enablement, it would be a little difficult if you follow that sequential method, and which is where agile delivery is required, that you need to do it fast. You need to close it fast so that you are able to ensure that whatever is required, you are able to understand it quickly and redraw the plan if required. So that is where majorly the fourth piece comes in, that the technology needs to be agile, it needs to be delivered in an agile manner to the factory floor, and not in the waterfall technique that usually manufacturing units would be following. So these four enablers, I'll basically get into the details of how do we basically get into it. So how do you create the right talent pool for a digital and advanced analytics transformation? Your entire organization will be divided into multiple frameworks, which is, let's say, one would be your senior management, then your operational management, production units, and functions. Under senior management basically comes in your management teams, your general managers. Under operational management would be your production and your technology managers, your functional team leaders. In under production units will be your production team leaders, which is, let's say, a floor 1 supervisor or a floor 1 manager or a line supervisor or something like that, or a finishing manager, something on those lines. Your quality and IE team will fall under production units. Your local IT team will also fall under production units, and the maintenance team for sure. And apart from that, the functions which will be there, which every factory also has, which is a continuous improvement project resources will be there. A central supply chain and merchandising function will be there, or non-technical functions will be there. So we basically do not need to hire out of this. We basically need to align them to certain things that we need in digital and advanced analytics transformation, which is, one, we need DNA champions, we need DNA aware people, and then third, we need the translators. Who is the DNA champion? DNA champions majorly will be the initial trickle down, has to be from the management team, where they will say that this is the approach or this is the vision that we want to go forward with. But it should be the immediate next level, the VPs or the directors of the company, who would be the major DNA champions, who will be driving these processes, and they will be ensuring that we develop a right digital and advanced analytics vision or a strategy for the company. The second piece is your aware, DNA aware folks, which will be majorly comprising of your production team leaders, your functional team leaders, your production and technology managers, quality and industrial engineering process technologies, and your non-technical functions like your HR or your finance as well, because they need to be aware where we are going in terms of, let's say, a digital and advanced capability, so that we are able to form that culture which is required for that organization. So that is where the major play will be from these 5 levels of your organization, which will be your DNA aware, and the translators will be your on-floor executors. The major is your continuous improvement resources or your project teams that will be there, who will be playing the major part on this, translating the need of the factory into a digital and advanced analytics transformation, while coordinating with other folks which are there, like your quality people, your production team leads, your central supply chain and merchandising. So they will be coordinating with them and ensuring that all of these also come into digital and advanced analytics capability. So when we have created these 3 buckets, the next thing that we would have to do is that create the right upskilling courses or learning experiments within the organization, so that these people at these levels can basically get attached or become a DNA champion or become DNA aware or become the translator of that particular company. And this is very important, because once you have been able to do it, majority of your digital transformation journey projects will be ensured that they flow in very smoothly. So that's how we basically ensure that we have the first enabler, which is the talent for any digital transformation aligned and ready with us. The second is basically your data, which is again an important part. So first, once you have been able to create your team into those 3 buckets, they themselves will come up with your data vision and the goals that you need to basically achieve with data. What is the data accountability? Data accountability meaning who is the owner of that data? If it is the sewing floor data, then you need to ensure that it is being correctly input by the people on the floor at that point of time. If it is, let's say, finishing, it has to be assigned to it. If it is quality, it has to be assigned to someone. If it is merchandising, it has to be someone. So every data point should have an accountability. If that data is not correct or accurate, then it basically goes up to them.
Sorry to intervene. I hope we are close to concluding this session, Mr. George.
Yeah, just another couple of minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So yeah, the second is ensuring that it is data accountability. Once we have been able to get into the data accountability, we prioritize what data do we require from the piece, or how do we prioritize the data. The team will be able to do that. Once all of that happens, you come onto the metadata or data lineage. So you need to understand where does that data come from? Does it come from a quality checker, or does it come from ERP data entry operator or something on that front? Then once all of this is defined, then you need to get into the data quality and controls. Ensure that your data quality is optimum. As we have all heard that garbage in, garbage out. If your data is not very accurate, then it will basically create problems in terms of using that data. Policies and standards and processes is something that we need to create after that. Data retention and data security form your last piece of the puzzle that you want to achieve at the end of this entire journey. So this is how you will basically enable both of your critical enablers, which is the first is your talent pool and your data piece. Once you have been able to do that, we at Zilingo are more than happy to help you solve for your technology and your agile delivery part of it. When we come onto the ZFactory side, the solutions that we have from our end are definitely highly configurable and flexible, which will solve for the technology requirements based on your suggestions or what you have come up with your requirements. It is a real-time data solution, which basically helps in supporting streaming data and ensuring that it is customized solution, because the solution that we basically try and create is a configurable solution. At the end of the day, we would want the solution, we would want not to do many customization, but the solution should be able to be configured for a lingerie manufacturer or a suit manufacturer with a click of a button. And that's what we deliver in this case. And the last bit is definitely that we are not only a cloud solution which is deployed on cloud, but we develop it as a true cloud solution, which is completely designed on cloud and ensuring that all the components of it is also on cloud. So yeah, the last piece is definitely that At this point of time, we have the vision for the next couple of years to have Z-powered apparel factories. As many of you would know, and many of you are already clients of our solution, ZFactory MES, that was our first phase when we went into it, where we wanted to build an end-to-end MES solution so that we are able to create a data lake for the factories, where we use mobile technologies, RFID QR code solutions. The second phase, which is now we are piloting in a couple of OGTC clients as well, which is we are rolling out in the next 1 month or so, maintenance room modules or your sample room modules or your or the line balancing skill matrix. All of those tools are now coming up currently, where we are looking to use the data that we have been collecting with MES and build better productivity solutions for the factories. And definitely once we are done with that, the last phase or the ultimate aim for us is to ensure that we help you to create a digital twin of your factory, which would help us to introduce never heard before a dynamic planning solution to the overall industry, which will help to solve for majority of the forecasting issues that we face currently. So that is the overall vision that we have as an organization for the next couple of years. But yeah, while we are talking about this, all of this solution is mobile friendly, RFID and QR code enabled, which also go down to the level of ensuring that if there is something amiss in your factory, you do not need to come onto your laptop or your mobile phones even. We would send out an alert on WhatsApp on your own mobile phone, so that you're able to see what has gone wrong in that particular factory or what's happening on that front. So it is basically driving to that level. So yeah, I'm hoping that today's session would have been informative for everyone. Thanking again the OGTC members, everyone for their time, and thank you Animesh ji, thank you Vibha ji for inviting, and thanks to Colonel Kapoor for arranging a fantastic session today.
Thank you, Anuj. It was really a great presentation, especially your DNA transformation. And I am sure going forward, every industry probably has to, this is the only way, the way things are moving ahead. And we see the business opportunity available right now. The business is ready to move to India. But unless we are ready for that, because this will require a lot of change in our working methods and improving our, the productivity. So we have few minutes left. If any particular question on this, we can take up that. Otherwise, we'll move to the next session. Hello, Mr. Sharab.